The IRS is comprised of human beings just like me and you, so they make mistakes. And in this new era of using technology, the IRS is adopting that too. Computers make mistakes, guys. A CP14 is a computer paragraph which is going to be computer generated, which means a human being may have never even looked at your account before this went out, which also means it may not be correct.
Welcome to the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. Are you behind on taxes? Is the IRS threatening you or your business? Are you overwhelmed and confused about how to resolve your tax issues? Let's join Timalyn as she explains your options and how she may be able to help. Timalyn Bowens is America's favorite EA.
Hey family, I'm back in the studio today and we are past the most lovely time of year where you file taxes and we're a little bit into doom and gloom season. So in today's episode, I'm going to break down how to understand your CP14 notice. Now, if you've never owed the IRS, you've never had to Google this, so you have no idea what I'm talking about. Your CP14 notice is what you get, if you work from home like I do majority of the time, you go out to the mailbox because you're not seeing people all day, you're waving at all the neighbors, grab the mail, taking a look at it, and then you see it, a notice from the IRS. Your throat goes down into your stomach goes up into your throat because you're like, what in the world? Then when you open it, you see that it says notice of tax due and demand for payment. What do you do now? We're going to talk about it. So when you get this notice, you will see the IRS is pushing for people to get accounts online. So there is going to be a QR code. And when you scan it, it kind of explains the notice. But of course, it's not going to be able to explain it Barney style like I am. So keep listening. You can check out the IRS website if you want to. But another thing they're going to push you to do is to manage your communication preference. And what you can do is select to receive certain notices online. Personal opinion, I think it's convenient. It's going to save trees. However, how many times do you lose something in your email? Me, all the time. So for me, I would prefer to get anything that's important in the mail so I make sure that I see it each day. So depending on your personality, you may want to take that into consideration when choosing your communication preference with the IRS. But let's get into what you tuned in for. We're going to talk about what a CP14 is. We're going to talk about what to do if you receive one. We're going to talk about what to do if you can't pay. And then I'm going to give you a little bonus. We're going to talk about how to avoid it altogether. So first things first, a CP14 notice, as I said earlier, it's a notice of tax due and a demand for payment because the IRS has a job, and that is to collect money for the Treasury so we have the things that we need in the country, right? And okay, that may be in a fantasy world. That's how it all works. But the IRS job is to use enforcement activity to make sure that you pay what is due. So when we're looking at this, you may be thinking, what does CP stand for? It stands for computer paragraph. Now, if you're not new to the podcast, you know that I'm going to say this next thing often in this episode because you've heard it before. The IRS is comprised of human beings just like me and you, so they make mistakes. And in this new era of using technology, the IRS is adopting that too. Computers make mistakes, guys. A CP14 is a computer paragraph which is going to be computer generated, which means a human being may have never even looked at your account before this went out, which also means it may not be correct. Okay? So when you get this demand for payment, it is going to give you the amount due, it's going to give you the tax year, and it's going to give you a date to pay it by. So what do you do if you receive it? You want to first take a deep breath, because you panicking right now is not going to make it any better. Once you take your deep breath, you want to make sure that you read it carefully. Look for the tax year that it says you owe. Look at the balance and look at the tax return that you filed. Do these balances actually match? Has an adjustment been made to the return? What about if you think something's not correct? I would urge you to go through what I've explained before as the 3 phases of tax relief. All right? This I explained in episode 9. You're going to go online and look at your IRS transcript, okay? On your IRS transcript, what you can do is see when your tax return was filed. You can see the balance that they have on the account. And if you've already made a payment, you shouldn't have received a CP14, but because this is computer generated, the notice may have gone out, and instead of stopping because payment was received, it was already on its way to you. So if you've already made payment, don't freak out and wait on a long hold line before you can talk to somebody. Go access your IRS transcript and see if the payment's already posted. Now, if you're not familiar with pulling your IRS transcript, you can go to my blog at americasfavoriteea.com, and I have an article that walks you through how to pull your transcript in 3 steps, okay? But what if you receive one and you do actually owe? Now, this episode's only 15 minutes, so this is a general overview, all right? If you want more detail, check out episode 22, where I dig in a bit deeper to what to do if you can't pay a tax bill. But for now, with a general overview, you're going to determine what you qualify for by doing what I mentioned earlier. You're going to go check out episode 9. You guys know I'm going to shamelessly plug the whole episode, right? But you're going to go to episode 9 and you're going to look at your transcripts and make sure that the amount on the notice actually matches what's on your account. Then you're going to look at your financial situation and see, hey, can I get this paid off within 36 months? Can I get it paid off within 72? Because if the balance is under $10,000 and you've been compliant to this point, which means the past few years you've gotten your tax returns filed on time, you haven't owed, you may be eligible for a guaranteed installment agreement where you get this paid off in 36 months. Again, use americasfavoriteea.com as a resource. There is an ebook, guaranteed installment agreement, that will walk you through how to set that up. And I've had clients reach back out to me and say, hey, I was able to set that up within 20 to 30 minutes. Okay. Now, maybe you've been compliant, but you can't get it paid off within 72 months. Or maybe you owe more than $10,000, but less than $50,000. You can look into a streamlined installment agreement. If you're not familiar with what an installment agreement is, I go over that in more detail in episode 10. Now, times are hard, inflation's up, the job market is a little bit crazy. Maybe you can't afford to pay anything. The IRS does have an option where you can have them temporarily delay on any collection activity, but they're not going to automatically do this for you. What this is called is currently not collectible, and you have the burden of proof. You have to prove that you were in a hardship and that you can't afford to pay the back taxes as well as your reasonable living expenses. And I put an emphasis on that because if your child's taking jiu-jitsu or they're in AAU basketball, those don't count as reasonable expenses, okay? To learn more about the qualifications for that, you can check out episode 18. These are the things you're going to look at if you can't pay in full. Now, by all means, if you can afford to pay it off, please pay it off as soon as possible, because even with the arrangements that I talked about with the installment agreement, currently not collectible, interest and penalties will still accrue. All right. So if we're looking at the bonus here, let's talk about how to avoid this in the first place. For some of you checking this out, this isn't the first year that you've owed, and the IRS has been pretty lenient since the pandemic started. Have I seen them issue tax liens? Yes. Have I seen them levy bank accounts? Absolutely. But it hasn't been as aggressively as it was pre-pandemic. In order for you to avoid this and not stay in a cycle of getting a CP14 every single year, we need to make estimated tax payments. So if you're self-employed, you are going to make these quarterly. That is the requirement to avoid an underpayment penalty. However, if you've ever worked a W-2 job, your withholding that they do is actually also considered an estimated tax payment, and some people call it prepaying your taxes. The reason I bring this up is because if you are a business owner and you hate making those quarterly estimated tax payments, anybody out there like that? I am. It hurts my feelings. It's just too much money to be paying at one time. You can make those payments monthly. You can make them bi-weekly. Just make sure that you are paying in to the IRS so that when you go to file, life happens. Emergencies come up. I see taxpayers year after year say, I'm just going to pay it when I file my taxes. A hospital bill pops up. I have trucker clients where the truck broke down, so they made all this money, but now they need to put a lot of money into the truck. But guess what? We've just switched to a different tax year. So all the money they made the previous year, they're still going to be held accountable for. So let's get some good management of cash flow so you can make your estimated tax payments. And I'd also urge you, if this is a recurring problem, to invest in tax planning so you can look at ways that you can also reduce your tax liability. So when you get these CP14 notices, don't freak out. Take a deep breath. And remember, if you don't want to do this alone, it doesn't have to be with me, but you can reach out to a tax professional to get the help and guidance that you need. And the reason I bring this up is part of your taxpayer bill of rights. You have the right to representation. So with that being said, I found out that quite a few of my tax professional friends have been checking out the podcast, which that's fine. If you want to learn ways that you can help your client with their CP14 notices, each Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I've been doing a LinkedIn live audio event. You don't have to worry about being on camera. You can have your headphones on, earbuds, whatever you got. And for an hour, we talk about how to negotiate with the IRS, even if your client owes $100,000. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure that you're following me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Timalyn Bowens EA, and make sure that you actually sign up for the event so that you can be there with me to listen. Now, if you're familiar with Clubhouse, it has the same features. So there are times when I can actually pull up tax professionals and they can ask me questions on the quote unquote stage as well. And last but not least, because you guys make this podcast what it is, in 2 weeks, we have episode 30 coming up. If you are new to the podcast, please go back and listen to episode 10 so you can see how excited I was about 10 episodes. So let's take that times 3 because I'm ecstatic because so many people don't make it to episode 30. And even if they do, It's not because they've been consistent, actually put them out every other Friday. But I love doing this. I love doing the content for you all because you all know I'm here to fill the tax literacy gap one taxpayer at a time. So do me a favor. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. I enjoy you checking it out every other Friday, but you actually subscribing is going to help me reach more people. Please leave a review. 5 stars is awesome, but write in what you actually like about the podcast and share it with somebody, because even though these people may not work with me, I still want them to be able to get the help that they need. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen today. I'd like to thank Jim Ray Consulting Services for helping me get this message out to you. I hope you found the information helpful. Did you know 1 in 50 people have a tax problem? Please share this episode with your friends and family because you never know who may need help. Again, thanks for listening. Hey, just as a reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It provides a framework and possible solutions for solving your tax problems, but it is not legally binding. Please consult your tax professional regarding your specific tax situation.